Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Reference Point. I'm your host, Dave Cokerhook. This evening, we've got quite a panel here. Usually you see me with one or two other guests, but tonight we have 5 people here to join me in a conversation about something that I think is actually very important and that we need to talk more about, which is immigration reform. You may recall several months ago we did a show here on immigration reform. I had an immigration attorney here talking about some of the challenges and issues associated with the entire system. But today we're going to bring things down and focus it here in our local community. And so I'm pleased to introduce a number of folks here, and I'm just going to go down and introduce their names, and they'll say hello, and then we're going to get into some conversation. So to my immediate left here is Mary Lou Delgado Hausmund, and Mary Lou has been in this community for quite some time. You said you lived in Mountain View for about 14 years, I think. Didn't you say that earlier?
Yes.
Very
16.
cool. 16, okay. And then next to her is Paula Perez. And Paula, you've been here a while too, 14, 15 years, I think. And you told us earlier you have 4 children, 3 boys and a girl here. And you and your husband and your family all live here in the Mountain View community. Next to her is Wendy Crowfoot. And Wendy, I don't know how long you've been a Mountain View person.
About 21 years.
21 years. Okay, so we've got a lot of long-time Mountain Viewers here. But the granddaddy of all Mountain View residents on our panel, Job Lopez, you say you've been here for 40 years?
That is correct. Almost 40 years. That will be 40 years in August.
40 years in August. Fantastic. So we're going to come to you for anything historical that we want to know about Mountain View, okay?
And it is great that you say granddaddy, because I will be a granddaddy for the second time in any minute now.
Oh, congratulations.
Oh, wow.
Fantastic. And next to Job is Rodrigo Quinidon. Rodrigo, you are a local attorney here in the community, and you focus on immigration law and things associated with visas and deportations and all that sort of thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So how long have you been in practice?
A couple of years. It's great work. It's great giving back to the community, especially the immigrant community out here in the Santa Clara area.
Fantastic. I'm going to start the questioning with, or the conversation, by just asking you about how and why you got into this line of the legal profession.
Sure. Well, it's actually something I figured out in law school. I took a couple courses in immigration law. Also took a couple summer programs where I actually got to work with immigrant clients, which really motivated me to help that community. There's a lot of misinformation out there about what people can and can't do. And as the son of immigrants, I was the firstborn here in this country. You know, it's really great to be able to give back to the community and help inform people that live around here what's really going on with immigration.
Fantastic. And that's what our conversation is going to be about today, is what's going on with immigration. Because I think there's a lot of stuff in the news. I don't know how factual the news information is. I do know that there's a deadlock in Congress. They've been talking about doing something in terms of making adjustments to the immigration laws for I don't know how many years now, and it hasn't really gone anywhere. So let's talk a little bit about that. I know Mary Lou, Wendy, and Job, the 3 of you are involved with an organization, Mountain View May Day March, right? Let's start talking a little bit about that, and then we're going to factor Paula into the conversation here to talk about some of this too. But so tell me a little bit about this program. This is not the first time. We're taping this here in April. It's going to air after May Day. But tell me a little bit about what the May Day March thing is all about.
Well, it is bringing awareness of the need to have immigration reform. It is a way of bringing the different communities here to Mountain View to express to our neighbors, community, and our politicians that we need to make a change. We need a decent path to getting immigration reform passed, and also for folks that they do not have to wait for a long time in order to get their immigration papers done, that they will not have to wait and have to jump over a variety of hoops. We want something that is reasonable for the people.
What is the process like right now? What is the process like? If someone who is looking to get to immigrate to, I don't know, you may know, you may have family still planning. What's the process like to get the papers to come here to the U.S., or if you're here in the U.S. as a visitor and you want to become a citizen, what are the processes? Are they straightforward, or are they not so straightforward?
For what I know and for what I understand, it is very, very difficult for an immigrant who came, to become a legal resident, or forget about being a U.S. citizen. Yeah, U.S. citizen. Okay. If you came to the United States with a work visa or tourist visa, that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But once your visa is over, or then you become automatically undocumented.
Mm-hmm.
And from that moment on, you better be careful, because if you want to stay, you are undocumented, you are illegal, as they call us.
Right.
Okay. And but if you want to get your status documented,
It's not easy.
It's impossible.
So, Rodrigo, you can probably speak more to that, I guess, because you face this on a regular basis with your clients, yes?
Yes, absolutely. And it really depends on the situation. There's many different visas to come to the United States. There's many different ways to change. If you're coming from a foreign country, you would do what's called consular processing. There's a U.S. consulate in most countries where you would do that process through the consulate and then come over here. Once you get here, the process is a little bit different. You do an application, say you're trying to get a permanent residency.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of forms that you need to fill out, and depending on your situation, there's a lot of different evidence that you need to provide. So that's where, typically an attorney will help you out with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the more complicated issues in your case, it's just a lot more work, and sometimes a lot more cost because of that.
And this is true not just for people who are coming to the United States from Mexico or Guatemala or Ecuador or Argentina. It's anywhere. I mean, we got people who are coming here from China and Vietnam and Romania, and anybody who comes here, the rules are the same, and it's the problem no matter how we look at it. Is that a fair statement?
That's right. Some countries do have special categories where the U.S. allows immigrants to come from that country for one reason or another, but generally, yes, the process is the same.
Yeah. So, Wendy, what is your participation in this process?
These are my neighbors, and I see them out on the streets. They're my friends. They're my local community. And I see them walking their kids to school. I see them at the local taqueria and I just see them everywhere in my neighborhood. And I think these are exactly the people we want in my country, and yet they can't always find a way.
Right.
And it's just, it's very sad to me.
Right. Are things better today than they were 10 years ago? Or are things more challenging today than they were 10 years ago? Paula, you may be able to speak to that question. Is it harder today to get through the process than it would have been when you first came to the United States on your work visa?
¿Es más difícil para arreglar los papeles ahora que antes con el proceso? ¿Cómo piensas?
Pienso que es difícil, porque una vez se rompió la regla ya no hay cómo virar para atrás.
So es similar de antes
Sí, porque el proceso sigue siendo el mismo, entonces.
Well, because the process has been the same, regarding being documented, or the process, it remains the same problem because the rules have not changed.
So the rules haven't changed. So it's as difficult now as it was then. So it hasn't gotten any better, but it hasn't necessarily gotten any worse. But what we're looking at is trying to find ways to get some improvement. So let's talk a little bit about the impact of the way things are right now there's a lot of press about the discussions about immigration reform that go on in Congress. And depending upon whether you're watching a liberal news station or a conservative news station, you get the extremes of the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So, but what's really going on? What are the real key issues that people need to understand so that we can put appropriate communication to our elected officials to have them try to do something? And I'm going to ask Paula, from your perspective, what are the big challenges, the things that you would like to see changed, and why?
¿Qué piensas que son las barreras que son más grandes, más difíciles, que necesitan cambiar, del proceso de inmigración? ¿Cuáles son las barreras más grandes que piensas que existe?
Pues una de las barreras más grandes que existen es que no están haciendo lo posible para dar una reforma justa para toda la comunidad que necesita, porque si la reforma llega, entonces las personas vamos a tener oportunidades, vamos a tener no nada más nosotros como mayores, sino también los estudiantes que han venido.
So but the biggest thing is the need to have the immigration reform passed, because it affects the whole, the variety of ages, from the elderly to the young ones. So that immigration reform needs to be addressed, because that is the biggest.
I understand that we're talking about the need to address immigration reform, but what are the problems that the community is facing? What are the issues that, because I don't know. I mean, I don't have that personal. What are the? I'll ask Rodrigo. What are some of the things in the community that are the problem points or the tension points that that the current structure is causing a problem for the people who are here?
Well, if I understand your question correctly, I would say that one of the things that is hurting more, because bleeding more our immigrant community across the country, is the deportations.
Okay.
Deportations have been on as never before for the last 4 years. Okay, and in the process, thousands and thousands of families have been broken apart.
Why is that?
Because in the process of deportation, the mother is deported, or the father, and the mother stays here, and they have children that were born in this country. They are U.S. citizens. Either the parents, when they deported, when both of them are deported, they take their children because they have the right to take them, but then they were born here, and they are being deprived of their country of birth. Okay, and when their children are 6 or 7 or older, they speak English, and then they go to their parents' country, and they don't know the languages. That's a human suffering for the kids. So that's a violation of human rights by the government of this country, because it's deporting or is forcing those children who were born here to leave the country. So deportation is one of the most inhuman aspects that our community is facing.
So in the example that you described, which the situation is that you're forcing American citizens to leave the country, because if their parents have to leave, they're going to go with them. They're not going to leave. Okay.
The other choice that the parents have is either they leave the children here with relatives or in foster homes.
Right. Yeah. Which is not that's another
unhuman thing to do.
So you mentioned that there might be one or both parents that might be forced to leave the country. Is there a reason why that would be I mean, I don't understand how this thing is played out. Okay, so if the mother and father don't have the full documentation, and are they going to send them both, or are they going to say, the dad has to go or the mom has to go, and he can stay or she can stay because the kids are here? Is it just like, cut and dry, or they're applying it in a very blanket way, these rules?
If both the parents are undocumented, both have to be deported.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter if they have 3 or 4 or 5 children.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. If they were born here, they have to take them with them, or they can leave them here with whoever they want or they can.
Got it. So let's talk. Tell me a little bit, from whomever, why is it that there would be one parent that's documented and one that might not be? What circumstances would create that kind of a condition?
Because sometimes people fall in love at work, right? And they meet each other there. So, and if they're both undocumented, or sometimes someone can be a U.S. citizen and marry a person that is undocumented, but because the person entered right without the paperwork, then how I understand it, they cannot, even though they're a citizen, request for their spouse
too.
because there's guidelines. They had to come in to the United States with the paperwork, right? Is that correct?
And I guess from what Rodrigo, what you said earlier, there's a couple of circumstances. There's someone who just, for whatever reason, comes across the U.S. borders, whether from South America or Mexico or China or wherever, and doesn't make any attempt to go through the process. And then there are others who come here on a visa that may expire, but they opt to not leave and they find a way to stay.
Exactly.
And in either case, you have that problem. Is that a fair statement?
Right.
That's absolutely fair. I think one important thing to take into consideration, a lot of the Latin American countries, specifically Mexico, which is right next to the U.S. border, there's a lot of violence, a lot of huge problems over there because of the corruption in government, the lack of police that are able to help people with crime, with all those different things. And for many people, they don't feel they have an option. If they essentially want to survive, if they want their kids to survive, they have to literally find a way to get here.
Right.
So sometimes people have no other options to break the law, essentially, sometimes, to come in. Yeah.
Let's talk about the people that are here for a few minutes. There are some number, I don't know what the number is, but there are some number of undocumented individuals from a variety of countries that are living here in the United States. One of the arguments is that these people are taking our jobs, these people are this, these people are that. But the reality is different, isn't it? You're shaking your head when you saw it. Go ahead.
So the way actually our laws are set up, they are designed to have illegal immigrants take jobs in agriculture and very low-paying jobs. It's not that the U.S.ers don't want them, although they are very physically hard jobs with very little money. It's actually the way it's written. U.S.ers won't go after them. And if we do, then they'll rejigger the amount of money that they pay. Sorry, I just read an article. It's on my mind. So, and also I feel like, isn't there always competition for every job?
Sure.
And if, using that argument, anyone who's coming after me in the work food chain, they have the same right to be competing with me. So I feel like you do a good job or you don't.
The people that are here, that are working at a job, they're buying merchandise in California, so they're paying sales tax. I don't know whether or not they would show that they have a W-2 form or might be paying income tax. So it's not, it's not like there isn't the expected benefit to the establishment for the individuals who are living and working in the community, right? It's not like they're all, because if you got a job, you're going to be, taxes are going to get taken out. If you go and you buy, you buy a cup at the local store, you're going to pay sales tax on this. So it's, the argument about that, it seems to me to be not quite. They're missing some points on this. Am I crazy? Paula, what's your experience here with this? You work here in the Bay Area. You've had some family members who had been here. I don't know if they're still here or had been here who had some undocumented situation. They were working. They were paying. They were, Am I correct in what I'm?
Ellos pagan impuestos, right?
Sí.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pues todos pagamos, en mi familia los que trabajamos pagamos impuestos, pero ese es uno de los puntos que yo pienso que si llegara a pasar la reforma migratoria sería como la economía fluiría más, porque entonces más personas van a hacer sus taxis, van a tener facilidad para hacer un negocio, van a poder crear hijos educados y en el futuro van a crear una masa de trabajo educada que de esa forma van a contribuir al.
So she's saying the importance of, that they pay their taxes, and that's why it's so important with this immigration reform. They'll see how this could help the economy, because what they do here by using their money, by paying the taxes, it will create more jobs that they'll be here comfortably, and that their children too, they will be, more relaxed because they're stressed out because of their parents'
Sure.
situation. So it would help for making the economy healthier.
Sure. I mean, that makes sense to me. The more people working, contributing, etc. We don't have a whole heck of a lot of time left in the show, maybe about 8 minutes or so, but I want to ask a couple of things here. Let's take a look at, we're talking about the need for, quote, immigration reform, unquote. But are there or are there not specific options that have been put forth by different political, groups or in Congress? And what are the key points that we really need to have in a reformed structure that would make a difference, that would have an impact on the community?
Yeah, I would say one big thing is obviously the DREAM Act. I'm sure everyone here has heard of the DREAM Act. Essentially, the DREAM Act is for immigrants who came to the country, young people who didn't have a choice in the matter. Their parents brought them over from either a Latin American country or another country, and now they're in the system. They've grown up here. This is their life. So what do we tell these young people who go to school, who realize at some point that no matter how good their grades are or how great they excel in high school, that they're never going to be able to work, they're never going to be able to go to school, they're never going to be able to use all that hard work to accomplish anything. Mm-hmm. So I think a big part of immigration reform should be focused on at least helping this group of people who have, come to this country, through no fault of their own, and they shouldn't be punished.
Do we have any idea how large that population is?
It must be at least a couple million. I don't know the exact number, but it's a large number.
I would say more, much more than a couple.
Yeah. Okay.
Across the country, yes. Yeah.
Now, that's not, okay, let me make sure. The dreamers are those who came here when they were very young, their parents brought them here. It's not children who were born here, because they're automatically American citizens, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right, so that's one, the DREAM Act. What else? Are there any other key points that should be part of a logical reformation of the immigration system that will have a significant impact? Go ahead.
Please.
No, you go ahead.
No.
Okay, so
Ladies
sorry.
first.
Ladies first.
So right now, if you enter illegally and you want to apply to be a citizen and you've been here a while, you're told you need to go back home. Mm-hmm. For 3 years in some cases and 10 years in others. And in some countries, that's actually not safe, right? We're back to this. So removing some of those barriers would help to streamline the policies that are in place, because that's not workable.
Got it. Okay, so we've got 2 items. Hope you had a thought.
Well, I don't know how to put my thoughts together. I'm having a hard time. But again, I think the politicians in Washington, for the most part at the House, and many others across the country, they are being very short-sighted, let alone many citizens. But with due respect, I will say that they only look at the fact that millions of people are here undocumented.
Right.
And the laws have been violated.
Right.
They keep saying this is a country of laws. It is true. It is a country of laws, but we need to distinguish what kind of laws are those and what kind of laws are these. I mean, there are laws and laws, and laws were written and approved by human beings.
Right.
And human beings, we are not perfect, okay? What I'm trying to say, some of those laws do not take into account the dignity, the humanity of the person. And what I mean when I say they are being short-sighted, they only look at the numbers,
Right.
or the undocumented people that they are here, but they are unable or unwilling to recognize the contribution of those millions of immigrants to the prosperity of this country.
Right.
Okay.
And I think part of that is sometimes the laws were written back when, and things have changed, and the law needs to adjust with it. The other thing that's clear to me is that the United States has been a country that has shows an open arms for immigration, okay, for people to come to this country.
Correct.
But throughout history, we have had our issues at different times. When the Irish came after the potato famine, it was like, oh, the Irish, they're evil, they're net, etc. When the Italians came here after, because of World War II, etc. That was then all those terrible Italians, right? The Chinese, when they brought them over to do work on the railroads and in the mines and things, oh, the Chinese were terrible.
And when the Japanese were put in concentration camps because of the Second World War.
So we have our sort of a dichotomy here. We have one thing that we say and sometimes another thing that we do. And I think what we're talking about here today is the need to shine some light on this thing. And if you were to step back in a somewhat dispassionate perspective and just look at the opportunities and the positive contributions, like you were saying, you might come to a different conclusion. You can get very rigid in a perspective and not look at any other action, and I think that's what's happening a lot. So hopefully we can through this conversation get some people thinking about this. It's time for us to end off, and I'm afraid I don't have enough time to go over and have you each give me one last thing to say, but you have something. Go right ahead.
If you allow me, please, I just want to say, and sometimes I get very emotional, and that's part of my nature. I just want to say and to thank people like Wendy. Mm-hmm. She's white. She's not.
She's not Latino. I could tell the hair.
She's not like Marilu or Paula. Okay, and she was born here. She's not an immigrant, and yet she is in our side.
Yeah.
It's just like many. Excuse me, Marilu.
And I was born here too.
But
I'm one of those. Okay. But my mother was born in Mexico.
I was born here too. Just to be clear.
So was I. So we're all.
But,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, listen.
So thank you for your support and for being with us.
I appreciate all of you being here. And part of a couple places this show might air before the May Day event. So, folks, be on the lookout for that. I want to thank you for paying attention to our conversation. If you have any questions or things about this topic or other topics, send them to me at info@referencepointtv.com. We'll see you next time on Reference Point. Thank you.